everyone! Today I'm going to share my top 10 favorite tips for decorating a fabulous Christmas tree. Now some of these tips I use on every single tree that I decorate. Some of them I only use when appropriate, but every single one of these tips is guaranteed to enhance your tree if you use them. Now this is going to be a little bit of a compilation video, so as I talk through each of the tips, I'm going to share photos and videos of how I've used these tips in various trees that I've decorated. And I do have specific decorating videos for each of the trees that I'm going to be showing, so in case you're interested and want to see more on one of these specific trees, check down in the description box below and I'll have the links to each of those videos. Now let's go ahead and get started with our first tip. The first tip is going to be to add light to the top of your tree by incorporating it somehow into the tree topper. Now, an easy way to do this is to actually get a lit tree topper. So through the years, I've found several different options. I purchased things like this star, which I use on one of my trees, and most recently, I've found these lights, which are called umbrella lights, and you can use them in a variety of ways, but one of those ways is incorporating it into the tree topper. If you don't have a lit tree topper, or maybe it doesn't match the vibe of what you're doing with the rest of the tree topper, there's a couple of other ways that you can do it. One of them is to get something like this type of spotlight, which is not designed for Christmas trees at all. It's just an LED bulb in a light socket, but you can add that to the top of the tree. Also, another good tip is if you are adding light to your tree, leave a little bit extra on the top light strand and actually wind that around the top of the tree. And the reason for this is a lot of times we put a lot of effort into having very well lit trees themselves, but then when you get to the top, if you don't think about how to incorporate light up there, it looks a little uneven. It just looks very dark and heavy. So by adding light, it's going to look a little more even and balanced out. Speaking of lights, the next tip is to make sure your tree itself has enough lights. A good rule of thumb is if your tree is kind of a general width and is 7.5, 8 feet tall or under, you want to have at least 100 lights per every foot of the tree. If you have a particularly wide tree or your tree is, say, 9 feet or higher, then you may even want to go up to something more like 150 lights per foot. And most pre-lit trees don't actually come with that many lights on them. So a lot of times you're going to need to add your own. So kind of a bonus tip in a tip is when you're adding additional lights, actually add lights that have a function like a twinkle setting like this. And what I like to do with these types of lights is actually run them just a little bit more on the inside of the tree. That way the tree kind of looks like it's twinkling from within. You don't necessarily realize that you've got twinkling lights. I realize they look a little spastic right now because they're all wadded up. But once you put it on the inside of the tree, it actually has a really nice glow. And this is the favorite set, and I pretty much do this on every single one of my trees, except for one. So I will link to this set because these can be a little bit hard to find a really good set like this. I will also link to any other products that are still available that I'm going to be featuring today. But of course, a lot of this stuff I've had for a long time. But if there's anything that you're interested in, check down in the description box for that. Or feel free to leave me a comment if I didn't leave a link for it, and I'll see if I can find you something similar. My third tip is what you can do when you have a tree that's maybe not as full looking as you would like. Maybe it's old, maybe it's just not very good quality, and you don't want to be able to see through it quite as easily. What I like to do in those cases is to actually fill it on the inside with some kind of material. My favorite type of material to use is actually called fabric mesh. It's not quite the same as your traditional deco mesh because it's a lot softer a material and I think easier to work with. And this is something that I do with a couple of my trees that are a little bit older, but otherwise they still work fine, is I will run this on the inside of the tree as I'm setting the tree up. So that way it keeps your eye from being able to see through the tree. Of course, you can also use deco mesh for this, and I do that as well when I can't find a fabric mesh, maybe in the color scheme that I'm looking for. And so my tip with using deco mesh would be to cut it up into manageable pieces, because I find that deco mesh likes to curl and kind of roll up and poke and all of that. So cutting it up into maybe 3-foot long pieces makes it a lot easier to basically do the same thing with by shoving into the inside of the tree and using to kind of help block the eye from being able to see through. All right, I really like tip number 4, and that is how you take a regular green tree and make it look like a flocked tree. And for this, my tip is to basically take an unlit flocked garland and to cut it up into pieces that are, say, 2 feet, 3 feet long. And then as you're setting up the tree, take each section, kind of lift up this section above and actually put this in like this, kind of creating a shelf to be able to put this right on the outside. The great thing about this is, 1, it'll not only make the tree look more full, but 2, of course, it gives you that flocked look. We're already on to tip number 5, and if you're enjoying this video, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. It is such a great way to support me here on my channel and tells YouTube that they should help suggest this video to others who may be looking for something similar. But tip number 5 is to decorate your tree from the inside out. And what I mean by this is, before you start putting ornaments on the outside of the tree, think about putting some ornaments more on the inside of the tree. And for this, typically I suggest using inexpensive ornaments, maybe a little bit bigger ornaments or reflective ornaments. And once again, this is one of those tips that's going to help trick your eye, because when it starts to look into the tree, it's going to see something light, bright, shiny that's going to bounce the eye back out and not be able to see through. So something like a ball like this is a great way to do that, and typically doesn't cost a lot of money. Then you can save the outside branches for your most showy special ornaments. And speaking of hanging your ornaments on the outside branches, tip number 6 is how you can best do that. And I know you're probably thinking like, what do you mean? Shouldn't I just hang it? How hard can that be? But actually, there are ways to make it look better than others. So let's say you've got something with one of the little built-in strings that you can hang from. You don't want to just hang that from the tip of the branch. I mean, you could, but it probably hangs a little awkwardly. It probably kind of sticks out from the tree and just doesn't look quite as good as it could. So what I recommend that you do when something has a built-in string hanger like this, you put it around the branch, but then you pinch it and you actually wrap it around until it hangs right underneath the branch. That way, it kind of looks a little more natural, like it is hanging directly from something, and it can nestle in between the branches that are right there. But let's say it didn't have the string hanger, it just had the little metal hook, and you need to add your own hanger to it. Please don't just get one of the super long hangers and just hang it from that and then have it do kind of the same thing. What you can do is either get a shorter hanger, or most of the time these hangers, either the metal ones or the plastic ones, are very bendable. Just go ahead and rebend it so that once again it hangs right from the branch and doesn't have a lot of space underneath. Of course, for ornaments that don't really need a hanger, that you can just nestle into the branches and they'll stay right where they put them, maybe something that's got a certain shape or texture that allows it to do that, then just stick it in the tree, and as long as you don't have kids or animals that are going to be jostling the tree around, it should stay right where you put it just fine. Tip number 7 is another fun one, and that is to think outside the box a little bit when it comes to what you use to decorate your tree with. So a few different ways that I do this. One is sometimes when I have a tree that I think will benefit from having kind of overscale, oversized things on it, I'll take things like really large balls and attach them kind of on the outside of the tree. You can also put them on the inside per my tip earlier, but sometimes it's interesting to put them on the outside. But it doesn't have to be an ornament. You can also do something like, say, this deer, which I'm sure is actually meant to put, on a table or a sideboard or something like that. Well, I just stick it in the tree. And it even extends beyond things like that. Like, for instance, I've done that with antlers, and I've even incorporated antlers that we found on our property. This is just a deer shed antler that I'll stick on the tree as well. And then another way you can do it is by adding things like greenery into your tree. So, I've got some dried real greenery here. I've got a pick here, and adding things like this, especially to an artificial tree, can do things like make your tree look a little more real, add some interesting texture, and also make it look more full. So just have fun when it comes to thinking about what you want to put on your tree. Tip number 8 is to invest in your ribbon and really think about being liberal with your use of it. You can use it to create bows for the tree topper, you can use it to create bows for the tree, or just use to kind of weave in and out around the tree to just once again add a little visual interest, texture, color, etc. And a lot of times with trees, I do start with inexpensive ribbon that will get me through for a few years. And once I feel like I've perfected the overall look of a tree, then a lot of times at that point, I will upgrade the ribbon to, say, better quality ribbon. A lot of times I find some great inexpensive ribbon from places like Target, At Home, Hobby Lobby, Walmart. But when I'm ready to upgrade my ribbon, then I like to actually go to more Christmas specialty stores, decorating warehouses, etc. So I'll link a few of my favorite stores to get really high quality ribbon from down below. But I do have several trees that I do that are very ribbon heavy focused. I don't actually have a lot of ornaments on them. It's really a lot of ribbon with just a few ornaments, and it really makes the tree look quite interesting and special. We just have a couple of tips left, and these are actually going to focus underneath the tree. And you may have noticed we've kind of been working our way from the top of the tree down to the bottom. And this is going to be about the tree skirt. So this tip, once again, is about thinking outside the box, thinking creatively about what you can use for your tree skirt. A lot of times I like very non-traditional trees, themed trees, and it can be hard to find an actual tree skirt that I think works well, or sometimes they're just really expensive. So think outside the box on your tree skirt. One of the things that I really like using include blankets. This was an inexpensive Target blanket that I picked up that I use as a tree skirt. And you can even get a little fancier. This is some upholstery fabric that I picked up at Hobby Lobby on clearance years ago, and it is really good quality. It is really unique and special. And because this has raw edges, I'm not a seamstress. I don't worry about that. I bought enough that I just kind of tuck it under so you don't see the edge, and it just kind of creates a nice puddle or pool around the bottom of the tree. And tip number 10 is to not forget to decorate under your tree. If you've seen any of my tree decorating videos, you know I am big on always having something underneath the tree. The easiest way to do this is just to wrap empty boxes in, say, a coordinating wrapping paper, bonus points if you use the same ribbon as what's on your tree, and just have those that you can put out year after year as soon as you put the tree up. Now, I realize some people have kids that may get driven crazy by having presents under the tree that don't have anything in them. So you don't have to only reserve it for putting presents under there. You can also do things like buy items that you might once again set out on a table or use somewhere else in your decorations and put these under or next to your Christmas tree as well. I've been having so much fun sharing these tips that let's go ahead and throw in a bonus one, but it's not actually a tip on decorating a Christmas tree, but how to use your Christmas tree throughout the year. And that is to don't just keep your Christmas tree out and decorate it with Christmas things. Think about how you can decorate it for other holidays. So I like to decorate a Valentine's tree, an Easter tree, a patriotic tree, and a following tree, kind of fall/Halloween. And then of course Christmas. So that allows me to enjoy a little bit of holiday cheer throughout the entire year. Plus I get extra use out of my Christmas tree, so it helps me justify maybe spending a little bit more on some nicer quality trees sometimes. And it's really an interesting conversation starter for people when they realize, wow, you have a Christmas tree out in your home all year long. But I really hope you've enjoyed this video and the tips that I had to share. Since you're still here, that probably means you were enjoying it or at least finding them useful. So this would be a great time to go ahead and like the video if you haven't already, and to think about subscribing. I love to make videos on a lot of topics, but most of them are around decorating, and especially decorating for the holidays. I do also like fashion and beauty, so I throw some of those in from time to time as well. And for those of you that don't know me, hi, my name is Catherine, and I'm really glad to have you here. But go ahead and let me know if you have any favorite tips, either something that maybe I covered, but especially if it's something that I didn't cover. But go ahead and leave a comment down below, and I'd love to be able to chat about them. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a great holiday season, and until next time, bye.